3 months. For 3 months, I woke up every morning feeling like the luckiest man alive. The light would filter through the blinds of the apartment I'd bought 3 years ago, a place that had felt like just a collection of rooms until Jessica moved in. Now it was a home. I'd roll over and see her there, my fiancée Jessica, the woman I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And for 90 days, that thought was the firmest, most solid ground I'd ever stood on. I was 32, she was 30, and it felt like we were right on schedule. Life was unfolding the way it was supposed to. I had a good job, a home that was my own, and a future that sparkled as brightly as the diamond on her finger. That ring. It was a constant source of fascination for her. Sometimes I'd be in the kitchen making coffee and I'd just watch her. She'd be sitting on the couch, not reading or watching TV, but just staring at her own hand. She'd hold it up to the light, turning it slowly, letting the facets of the 1.5-carat stone catch the morning sun and throw tiny rainbows across the living room wall. She called it her little disco ball. She'd take pictures of it for her social media, dozens of them. Her hand resting on a coffee mug, her hand on the steering wheel of my car, her hand artfully placed on a book she wasn't reading. The caption was always some variation of, "I can't believe I get to marry my best friend, Bordy." But the picture was never of me. It was always of the ring. The $14,500 proof of my commitment, rendered in platinum and carbon. I remember her talking to her friends on the phone, her voice dropping to a hushed, reverent tone. "No, it's a VVS1, she'd say, and the color is an F. William really went all out." She learned all the terminology, the 4 C's, the market value, the resale potential. I'd teased her about it once. "You know more about that ring than the jeweler who sold it to me," I'd said with a laugh. She just smiled a tight, satisfied little smile and said, "Of course, an investment like this needs to be understood. It's a symbol of our future." At the time, I thought it was sweet. A little materialistic, maybe, but I figured it was just the initial excitement. Everyone shows off their engagement ring. It's part of the ritual. I didn't see the distinction then, the one that's so painfully clear to me now. She wasn't showing off a symbol of our love. She was showing off a status object, a high-value asset. It wasn't about us. It was about what it said about her. My relationship with my own most prized possessions was different. They weren't on display. They weren't photographed or appraised. They lived in a small, unassuming wooden box on the top shelf of my closet behind a stack of old college sweaters. It was my mother's box. My mom, Eleanor, passed away 5 years ago. I was 27 and the world just tilted off its axis. She was only 55. It was sudden, unfair, and it hollowed out a part of me that I know will never be filled. After the funeral, after all the casseroles and condolences, I was left with the quiet, devastating task of going through her things. Clothes that still smelled like her perfume books with her notes in the margins, and this little box. It was where she kept her treasures. Not things of monetary value, but things of memory. A lock of my hair from my first haircut. A faded photograph of her and my dad on their wedding day. A ribbon she won at a school track meet. And her wedding ring. It was nothing like the rock I'd bought for Jessica. It was a simple, slender band of 10K gold. It wasn't shiny anymore. Decades of constant wear had softened it to a gentle, buttery glow. It was thin, elegant, and profoundly humble. It had been my grandmother's wedding ring before it was my mother's, a tiny golden thread connecting 3 generations. When I held it, I felt the weight of that history. I could almost feel the warmth of my mother's hand, the hand that had held mine when I crossed the street, that had rested on my forehead when I was sick, that had waved goodbye the last time I saw her. The last appraisal done for the estate put its monetary value at about $120. Its actual value to me was incalculable. It was my connection to her, to the family that came before me. It was a symbol of a different kind of love, not the loud, flashy, look-at-me love of a diamond, but the quiet, enduring, through thick and thin love that built my entire world. I never took it out of the box. I didn't need to. Just knowing it was there, safe in the dark on the top shelf of my closet, was enough. It was an anchor. A piece of her, a piece of my past that I could carry into my future. I never told Jessica about the ring, not in detail. She knew about the box. She knew it was my mom's stuff, and she respected that boundary. Or so I thought. To her, it was just a sad little collection of sentimental trinkets, and for the first year she lived with me, she never mentioned it. But as the wedding planning started, something shifted. The apartment. My apartment, the one I had poured my savings into, started to become a project for her. It wasn't our home yet in her eyes. It was my bachelor pad, and she was the conquering hero destined to civilize it. "We need to make this place feel like us, William," she said one evening, gesturing vaguely around the living room. I looked around. My photos, my books, my furniture. It felt like me, and since she was the person I loved, I thought it would eventually feel like us, too. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, it's all you," she said, wrinkling her nose slightly. "We need to declutter, get rid of some of this old junk, make space for our new life. Out with the old, in with the new." She smiled brightly as if she'd just offered the most profound wisdom in the world. A little alarm bell, a tiny tinny thing went off somewhere in the back of my mind. "Old junk," I repeated, looking at a framed photo of my dad and me at a baseball game. "What old junk?" "Oh, you know," she said, waving a hand dismissively, the diamond on her finger catching the light. "Just stuff. We have a wedding registry for a reason, to get new, better things we choose together." I didn't argue. It seemed like a small thing, a difference in philosophy. She was a minimalist, a modernist. I was a sentimentalist, a bit of a hoarder of memories. I figured we'd find a compromise. I thought love was about compromise. I didn't realize then that she wasn't interested in compromise. She was interested in replacement. She wanted to erase the parts of my life that existed before her and replace them with a cleaner, shinier, more expensive version, a version that matched her ring. I should have seen it. I should have understood what "out with the old, in with the new" really meant to a person who measured worth in carats and clarity. But I was in love. And love, I've learned, can be a blinding, brilliant light, making you see rainbows on the wall while the foundation of your life is being quietly demolished. I just nodded, pulled her close, and told her we'd figure it out. I told myself that this was just part of building a life together. I had no idea that she was about to take a wrecking ball to the one part of my past that was truly sacred. The next day was a Saturday. I had an early morning meeting with a client downtown, one of those things that couldn't be a phone call. I remember kissing Jessica goodbye. She was still in bed, scrolling on her phone, the massive diamond on her hand looking almost comically large against the white of the duvet. "Don't work too hard," she murmured, not looking up. "And when you get back, you'll see the surprise. I'm finally going to tackle this place." I should have asked what she meant. I should have pressed her on her definition of tackle. But I just smiled, told her I loved her, and left. I trusted her. That's the part that really guts me when I look back. I trusted her in my home, with my life, with my memories. I thought we were building a future, and I didn't realize she thought that required a demolition permit for my past. My meeting ran long, bleeding into lunch. I was in work mode, focused and present, so I didn't check my phone much. I remember feeling good on the drive home, productive. I was 32 years old, owned my own apartment, was successful in my career, and engaged to a beautiful woman. From the outside, I had it all. The American dream polished to a high shine. I was thinking about what we'd do for dinner, maybe order in and watch a movie. Simple domestic happy things. When I walked through the door, the first thing that hit me was the smell, lemon cleaner and something else. An absence. The air felt different. Lighter, thinner. The apartment wasn't just clean, it was sterile. My collection of old paperbacks that usually sat on the end table was gone. The slightly worn throw blanket my grandmother had knitted, the one I kept on the back of the armchair, was nowhere to be seen. In their place were new, crisp, neutral-colored pillows that looked like they belonged in a magazine. "Jess," I called out, my voice echoing slightly in a way it never had before. She emerged from the bedroom, beaming, wiping a smudge of dust from her cheek. "What do you think?" she asked, making a grand, sweeping gesture. "I told you I was going to make this place feel like us." I looked around again. Piles of black trash bags were tied up neatly by the door. My heart did a nervous flutter. "It's very clean," I said, choosing my words carefully. "Where's the blanket from my grandmother?" Her smile didn't falter, but it tightened just a fraction. "Oh, that old thing, it was so frayed, honey, and the color clashed with everything. I packed it away with some other stuff for donation. We can get a beautiful new cashmere throw from that place downtown. It'll be so much softer." She said it with such absolute certainty that she had done the right thing, the logical thing. She had upgraded me. She hadn't thrown it away, at least. But the principle was the same. My history was being edited, color-corrected, and replaced with something more expensive, something that fit her aesthetic. I swallowed the protest rising in my throat. It was just a blanket. I didn't want to fight. Relationships are about compromise, I told myself. "Okay," I said, forcing a smile. "It looks great. You worked hard." Her face lit up, all trace of tension gone. "I did. I even tackled the closets. Yours was a disaster zone, William, seriously. I don't know how you found anything in there." And that's when the tiny alarm bell from the night before started screaming. My closet. My closet wasn't just for clothes. The top shelf way in the back held my old yearbooks, a box of letters from my dad, and the small, unassuming wooden box my aunt had given me after the funeral, the box with my mother's things. "You organized my closet?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "Yes, I made so much space. I found all these old shirts. You never wear some weird junk in a bunch of shoe boxes. It's so much better now. Go look." I didn't walk. I ran. I pushed past her and went straight to my closet. She was right. It was organized. My shirts were arranged by color. My shoes were in neat rows. It looked like a stranger's closet. My eyes shot to the top shelf. The yearbooks were there. The box of my dad's letters was there. But the small, dark wooden box was gone. My blood ran cold. A wave of icy dread washed over me so intense it made me dizzy. "Jessica," I said, my voice low and shaking. "Where is the wooden box that was up here?" She leaned against the doorframe, looking proud. "Oh, that was part of the junk I was talking about. I went through it." She went through it. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. She didn't just move it or dust it off. She opened it. She put her hands on my mother's things. She invaded that sacred space. I felt a profound sense of violation, as if I'd come home to find a stranger reading my diary. "You went through my mother's memory box. Don't be so dramatic, William." She laughed a nervous sound now. "It was just a few old faded pictures and some trinkets. I kept the photos. They're in a new album. The rest was just clutter. The rest—" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. I turned to face her. "What rest, Jessica?" "You know," she said, waving a hand, that diamond, flashing again, a constant mocking reminder. There was a little dried-up flower, a silver locket that was all tarnished, and that cheap little ring. My whole body went rigid. "The ring," I said. "Her wedding ring. Where is it, Jessica?" This is the moment I play over in my mind. The moment the woman I thought I was going to marry vanished, replaced by the stranger standing in front of me. She looked at me, not with concern or empathy or even fear. She looked at me with genuine confusion, as if I were the one acting crazy. She thought for a second, tapping a perfectly manicured nail against her chin. "The ring." "Oh, right. The little gold one. It was so thin it looked like it came out of a gumball machine. I honestly thought it was just a placeholder you forgot about. It couldn't have been real gold. It was worthless, William. Where is it?" I didn't shout. My voice was dangerously calm. I think that's what finally scared her. "I threw it out," she said, her voice small. "Yesterday, when I was taking out the trash. The garbage truck already came this morning." Thrown out. The garbage truck already came. Gone forever. My mother's ring. The ring my grandfather gave my grandmother. The ring that was on my mother's hand for her entire marriage through good times and bad. The ring she wore in the hospital when she held me for the first time, the ring that was on her finger when she died, $120 of 10K gold, and an immeasurable, incalculable amount of love and history and memory. She had held it in her hand. She had assessed its value. And her verdict, delivered with the casual indifference of someone tossing out an old newspaper, was worthless. She hadn't just thrown away a piece of metal. She had taken my history, my mother's legacy, my family's story, and she had judged it. She'd weighed it against her own materialistic standards and found it lacking. She had declared my most treasured possession, my most sacred connection to my past, to be garbage. And she did it all with a smile, believing she was doing me a favor, believing she was improving my life by erasing the parts that weren't shiny enough for her, the old junk. Out with the old, in with the new. I finally understood. The old was me. The old was my family. The old was the quiet, enduring love that ring represented. The new was her. The new was the 1.5-carat diamond the cashmere throws the life where everything could be replaced with a newer, better, more expensive version. I looked at her, and the love I felt for her just evaporated. It wasn't a slow fade. It was like a switch being flipped. The blinding light was extinguished, and in the sudden harsh darkness I saw her for the first time. I saw the hollowness behind her eyes, the transactional nature of her affection. I saw a person so obsessed with the price of everything that she had absolutely no concept of its value. My breath caught in my chest, and for a second the world went silent. All the background noise of the apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic vanished. In that vacuum, a single terrifyingly simple thought crystallized in my mind. She was right. Not about the ring being worthless, but about how value is determined. For her, the equation was simple: price equals worth. That was her entire operating system. She had judged my mother's ring, a priceless heirloom, by its meager $120 appraisal and found it wanting. She had applied her logic to my world. And in that moment of ice-cold clarity, I knew what I had to do. I had to speak her language and apply her logic to her own world. My gaze lifted from the floor and moved to her left hand, which was still resting on her hip, in a pose of indignation. My eyes locked onto the 1.5-carat diamond, the platinum band, the $14,500 of pure, unadulterated monetary value sparkling under the recessed lighting. For 3 months, that ring had been a symbol of our future, of my commitment, of a life I thought we were building. But now, seeing it through new eyes, I saw it for what it was to her: a trophy, a status symbol, a price tag she wore on her finger to announce her own worth to the world. And its sentimental value to her, the sentiment was the price tag. "You're right," I said. My voice was eerily steady. It didn't feel like my own. It felt like it was coming from a great distance, from a version of me that was colder, harder, and finally unbreakable. Jessica blinked, caught off guard by my agreement. "Right, of course I'm right. It was a piece of junk, William. I was helping you declutter. We need to make this place ours, not some shrine to the past." "Yes," I said, taking a slow step towards her. "You're right. It's only about what things are worth. It's only about the price. I see that now. Thank you for teaching me that lesson." A flicker of unease crossed her face. This wasn't the reaction she expected. She wanted me to be angry, to yell, so she could play the victim and call me overly emotional. But I wasn't angry. Anger is a hot, passionate emotion. What I felt was the absolute zero of a dead star. "So," she said, trying to regain control, "are we good then? Can you just drop this? It was a silly old ring." "Take it off," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "What?" "Your ring," I clarified, nodding towards her hand. "The engagement ring. Take it off." Her face contorted from confusion to outrage. "Are you insane?" "No. Why would I do that?" "Because you taught me its value," I said, my eyes boring into hers. "It's a conditional gift. The condition was a marriage based on mutual love and respect. You have demonstrated that you have no concept of either. Therefore, the condition is broken. Its sentimental value is now 0. She scoffed a raw, ugly sound. "You're crazy, you're comparing this." She shook her hand, making the diamond dance with fire. "This beautiful, expensive ring to that worthless piece of tin you had in a box. You are completely unhinged." She started to back away, her free hand coming up to protect the ring. "You're just upset about your stupid old ring. I said I was sorry." "No, you didn't," I stated plainly. "You said you threw it out. You said it was cheap. You said it was worthless. You have never once said you were sorry." And in that moment, I knew she never would be. She was incapable of understanding what she had even done. It was like trying to explain color to a person born blind. I closed the distance between us in 2 quick strides. She flinched, but I was faster. I didn't grab her or hurt her. I just gently, firmly took her left hand in mine. She tried to pull away, but my grip was like iron. "William, stop it, you're scaring me," she shrieked. "Good," I said. I used my other hand to slide the $14,500 ring off her finger. It came off easily. For a moment, I held it in my palm. It felt heavy, not with the weight of platinum and carbon, but with the weight of a terrible, expensive mistake. I looked from the ring in my hand to her horrified face, and I felt nothing. No regret, no sadness, just release. I turned my back on her, walked the 10 feet to the kitchen, and stood in front of the stainless steel trash can. Her frantic footsteps followed me. "William, don't you dare!" she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "That ring is worth more than your car. That's $14,000. Don't you dare!" I looked down at the ring one last time. I thought about the jeweler telling me about the cut, the clarity, the color, all the metrics that determined its price. And then I thought of my mother's ring. No clarity, no impressive cut, just a simple worn circle of gold that had witnessed a lifetime of love, sacrifice, and family. One had a price, the other had value. Jessica had forced me to choose which one mattered more. With a flick of my wrist, I dropped her engagement ring into the trash. It landed with a tiny, insignificant clink against an empty can of tomatoes. I turned to face her. "You judged my mother's legacy on its monetary value." I said, my voice as cold and empty as the space in my heart where my love for her used to be. "You declared it worthless. So I've applied your logic. Your ring's monetary value is now 0. It's in the trash, just like its sentimental value." The scream that tore out of her throat was primal. It was a sound of pure, materialistic agony. It wasn't the sound of a heartbroken fiancé. It was the sound of a stockholder watching the market crash. She lunged for the trash can, shoving me aside, and began to frantically dig through the garbage, her manicured nails tearing at coffee grounds and vegetable peels. "You monster!" she shrieked, tears of rage streaming down her face, smearing her makeup. "You absolute monster, I'll sue you. I'll tell everyone what you did." I watched her for a moment, this woman I almost married, covered in literal garbage, weeping over a piece of metal. And the last bit of pity I might have had for her vanished. I walked over to the front door and opened it. "Jessica," I said, my voice cutting through her sobs. She looked up, her face a mess of filth and fury. "This apartment is in my name." I stated each word a block of ice. "I bought it 3 years ago. That was 2 full years before you ever moved in. Your name is on nothing. You are a guest here, and your visit is over." Her jaw dropped. The reality of her situation finally began to dawn on her, eclipsing even the loss of the ring. "You can't," she stammered. "You can't just kick me out." "I can," I said. "And I am. Pack your things. You have 1 hour to leave my home. If you are not gone in 60 minutes, I will call the police and have you removed for trespassing." I didn't wait for a response. I walked back into the living room, leaving the front door wide open. I went to my closet, took out the small wooden box that had held my mother's ring, and sat down on my couch. It felt lighter now. Empty. The next hour was a blur of slammed doors, drawers being yanked open, and a stream of furious, muttered curses. I didn't move. I just sat there holding the box, staring at the photo of my mother that I kept on the end table. She was smiling, her eyes full of the kindness and warmth that Jessica could never comprehend. Finally, I heard the sound of a suitcase rolling across the hardwood floor. Jessica appeared in the doorway of the living room, her face scrubbed clean but red and puffy. She was holding a suitcase and her designer handbag. She looked at me sitting there with the box, and for a second I thought she might say something. Apologize. Try to explain. But she didn't. Her eyes were full of pure, unadulterated hatred. "I hope you're happy," she spat, "alone with your junk." She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her, and then silence. The silence was deafening at first. It was the loudest thing I had ever heard. The apartment, my apartment, was mine again. I sat there for a long time, just breathing. The pain of losing my mother's ring was sharp and real. It was a physical ache in my chest, a final, brutal severing of a connection I thought I would always have. She had taken that from me, and I could never get it back. It was a sacrifice I never should have had to make. But as I sat there in the quiet, looking at my mother's smiling face in the photograph, I realized something. Jessica hadn't won. She had taken an object. But my mother's true legacy, the real inheritance she had left me, wasn't a simple gold band. It was the values she had instilled in me. The understanding that love is not transactional, that respect is not optional, that the most valuable things in this life are the things that have no price tag. The ring was gone. But the love it represented was still here, inside me. The victory wasn't in the revenge, as satisfying as it was to see her face when I dropped that diamond in the trash. The victory was in this moment, the quiet, the peace, the knowledge that I had saved myself from a lifetime of hollowness. I had protected my family's honor, and more importantly, I had protected myself. I had purged a toxic, materialistic poison from my life. I was alone, yes. But for the first time in a very long time, I was completely and utterly free. And my integrity was intact. That was something no one could ever take from me.